This video is part of a series on building a production-ready Chrome extension. And today we're talking about linting and formatting TypeScript code. So what is linting? Linting is a process of basically analyzing your code for potential errors, such as syntax errors, typos, and other common mistakes that can lead to bugs, often hard to debug bugs. Linting can also inform coding standards such as indentation, variable naming, and other style rules. Formatting, on the other hand, is automatically changing your code appearance to match a certain style guide. So as you can see, linting and formatting kind of go together, where linting catches errors and formatting changes your code. So together, they make your code into a consistent style, which is useful for larger projects where you have multiple developers, or open source projects where new people come in, they're not really familiar maybe with the language or with the coding style. And I found it useful basically as a learning tool. You know, when learning a language, you turn on these linting rules and you catch an error and you go look into it and you learn best practices for that coding language. All right, so let's start with linting. So our starting point is basically going to be from the last video. So we'll start with the code where we added message passing to our Chrome extension. So we're going to be using eslint as our linter. Eslint, and eslint is a JavaScript linter, but in our project we're using TypeScript. So there is another package, typescript-eslint, which enables eslint to run on TypeScript and adds additional rules specific to TypeScript. All right, so let's jump in. So we have our starting point here from the last video. All these files, and we're going to install eslint. So we're going to install eslint, the types, and we're going to install typescript-eslint for TypeScript. So next, and you see this thing here, one high severity vulnerability. So vulnerabilities are, this is a kind of side point, but you basically, when you see this, you want to fix this. If you want more details, we can run npm audit to see what it's talking about. So it's talking about node modules braces has a vulnerability, security vulnerability. The best thing to do in this case is fix it if you can. And this is not a direct dependency, but it's a dependency of dependency. So running npm audit fix will simply bump this to the next version. Grep braces package log.json. So it basically bumped it 303 right here. Okay. Okay, so we've got linting installed. So next we'll create a configuration file. Let's jump into our IDE and create a new file here. New file, eslint.config.mjs. MJS is the extension we want to use, but there's a reason why we were going to use MJS. So let me try to just use JavaScript initially. So we're going to put in our config here. We're going to use recommended rules. We're going to use recommended type check rules because TypeScript, we do want to use type checking of TypeScript, and then stylistic rules, which are like formatting, things like that. We're going to ignore our dist directory. That's where Webpack puts its bundles. And there is, we're going to add this option here, parser option. Basically, it's looking for we're telling it where our tsconfig.json is. So that option is looking for that. Now, I mentioned earlier, we wanted to use MJS instead of JS. So in this project, we're basically not using the new ECMAScript modules. So we actually can't use these keywords. If we want to use these keywords, one thing we could do is rename this file to MJS. So if I run lint like this, there's a couple ways to run it. You can always run it like this, just pointing directly to eslint that's installed in node modules.bin. And it's going to error because it doesn't like import. Simplest way to make it use ECMAScript modules is just to rename this file with MJS extension. Now you might be wondering, but wait, we were already using import export in other files, like over here we're using import. Yes, but this is a TypeScript file, and TypeScript files have their own config, which we're using here, tsconfig recommended. And this config actually enables ECMAScript modules, so we can look for it. Recommended config, and you see the config here. It's telling us to use common JS modules, but it enables ECMAScript modules here. So I'm not going to go into details, but basically there's two types of ways to do modules. And the modern one is ECMAScript modules. So that's that. So now I think we're ready to run. We got our config file, right? We got our config file, so let's actually run. So one way to run it is .node modules bin, just directly like this. Another way to run it, use npx. So npx is a package runner that comes with npm. So you can do npx eslint dot, and it will run on our TypeScript files, and it will catch errors. So I will have actually fixed all these errors later. But for now, let's move on. Let's move on and set up formatting. So for formatting, we're going to use Prettier. Prettier is a formatter that supports many languages, so it is widely used in the industry. So let's set it up. Let's go here, clear this, install Prettier, and we need to configure it. So we're going to add an ignore file, .prettier ignore, because we're going to ignore our dist directory. Node modules is automatically ignored by Prettier. And now we're going to add a configuration file. New file .prettierrc, and we're going to add one change here. We're going to use default rules except for semicolons. So we're going to say we actually do not want semicolons at the end of files, because this is how we've been writing code. We have not been adding semicolons here, right? I believe this is a cleaner look, and it's a frequent choice for projects. Okay, so let's actually run Prettier, and you'll see how it's going to modify all these files. So let's npx Prettier write dot. There we go. Let's see what it did. Modified all these files. Let's edit spacing. Basically tells you that it modified these files. Okay, now I added the linter and the formatter, and I do want to add them to my scripts in package.json, right? I already have Webpack here. So let's add the linter and the formatter. Okay, so I have the formatter. This will actually format the files. This is what I just did. This format check will check if the files are formatted. Lint will run the linter. So I can try this right now. You know, we just reformatted the files, so they should meet. They should be formatted correctly. So if I run npm run format check, it should all be good. Everything matches the code style. Cool. Next thing, so we said we set up the linter, we set up formatter. Now what we want to do is we want these checks, the linting checks and the formatting check, to run every time the code is committed to main or when a pull request is opened. So I'm just going to jump in and show the example of how we're doing that. Let me just go directly to GitHub, github.com, create Chrome extension. That's the repo. Increase the font. So we're doing linting and formatting right now. And to enable these checks to run automatically, we're going to use GitHub Actions. So the file goes into .github workflows, and we created a YAML file called lint and format here. Let's take a look at this file. And this lint and format will run when you push to main or when you open a pull request. And because this repo, we got multiple projects in here, so we're going to limit changes to when we change this directory here, or when this file itself is changed. That's when we're going to run this flow. So what is this flow going to do? It's going to check out our code. It's going to run npm install, and no save means it does not modify our JSON log file. So it means it uses the same exact dependencies as we had in our development environment. And then we're going to run format check and lint. Those are the two things we just added to our package.json file. And then we'll run npm run build because we can, just to make sure that the build is still good. So let's take a look at a recent run. So we can go to actions and we can see a recent run here. We can look at the details. Code was checked out, dependencies were installed. Looks like it's green, so everything passed. All right, so now we've covered basically the main points that we wanted to cover in this video. So now we're actually going to dive into details and go and fix some of the linting errors. So feel free to stop at this point, or we can just go dive in real time and fix some of these lint issues. All right, let's run lint again. npm run lint. We got 10 problems. And what we want to do is we actually want to see these in our development environment. So I'm using WebStorm. And WebStorm does have integration with eslint. So I go here, I search for eslint, does some integration. I say automatic eslint configuration. It should automatically figure out where the config files are. I say OK. Let's see. So there's an error on line 14 of background.ts. Background.ts. There's an error on line 14, and see, it does show up. In the past when I've done this, sometimes it doesn't show up right away, and I had to actually restart my IDE. But in this case, looks like it's working. Immediately. All right, so no unsafe member access, right? It's saying that this request is a type any, right? This is TypeScript, so we're talking about types. See, my ID tells me it's any. So any could be a number, right? If this request was a number, then this would error, right? There's no field in the number. So that's why it's flagging as unsafe. Now, if we wanted more details about this rule, this is no unsafe member access. We would go to the documentation. Let me double check something. This is a TypeScript rule. See, we have typescript-eslint, no unsafe member access here. So we go to TypeScript documentation, rules, and all the rules here on the left. Or you can search by rule. So we know this is no unsafe member access. Let's see if we can find it real quick. No unsafe member access. And it's giving you an example documentation. It's even telling you the config, right? So it's suggesting that you can put in warning here. You can change the configuration and some related rules. So let's go ahead and fix this. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to actually have a type for this callback. So we're sending a message here. This is a message passing. We're sending a message here. So let's define a type for this message. So let's go to a comment file. Let's create a type, export interface message, and then enabled. A question mark meaning it may not be there. Will it always be there? Not necessarily. So let's leave it like this. And then we're going to import message here. And then let's see if we can do this. Is this legal as message? Doesn't look like it. Let's do const message equals request as message. Yep, we got it. And then, okay. If this enabled it exists, we log it. So there we go. We fixed this error. Let's see what other errors we got. We got content has errors and pop-up has errors. Let's go to content. Go to the first error, text to blur, also unsafe. So same issue. This data is not of any specific type. So what are we doing here? We're getting something from storage. So we're getting our configs from storage. So let's define a type for the configs. So export interface stored config. Yep, optional, enabled, optional item. This looks good. Jump back into content. And then we'll say const config data as stored config. And RE actually should tell us automatically insert input. So what it did is added this import statement up here. And then we'll just use config here. Okay, still, there we go, config item. See, it's now of a known type. Okay. Let's modify this config item. Yeah, this is fine because this is a string. So basically, if a string exists, then we set it to blur. Okay. What else do we have in this file? Again, the same problem we had in the previous file. So we do const message equal request as message. We don't have it imported, so we're gonna tell the ID to import it. And then we're gonna use message here. Message. All good in this file. Pop-up. go to pop-up. What do we have here? We've got the same problem with the data. We're getting the data. So this is our config that we already created. So const config. Nope, got it wrong this time. Copilot data as, what do we call it? Stored config. Oh, I see it popped up right here. Well, that's pretty smart. Okay, and then we just use config here. Doesn't like something. Not assignable, right? So we do the old double exclamation point to force it to a Boolean. Okay, next error. Okay. So this does not expect a return value, right? So, and we're providing a return value. So we're kind of misusing this method a little bit. So let's get rid of this async. So it's not returning anything anymore. But now this is a problem. So we have to use then catch. Catch. Okay, this looks fine. Then tabs. This is so we put this code into. We get the tabs, we query the tabs, and then for every tab we send a message. So we're going to put this code inside then. Okay, that's cool, good. This message. So we're actually sending the message. So we want to do const message. It's a message type, right? Okay, so we're saying this message is of type message. And then here we just use that message here, message here. Okay, let's see what next. This is a response. Also same thing. This response, it doesn't have a type. So let's create a type for the response. So this is the content script sending back a response. Let's say export interface, sure, tab response, title URL. We're not going to use question mark because we're going to say these are always populated. Content script sending the response here. So we're going to say const response equal type tab response equal to this. Okay. Response. This is good. Back to pop-up. Okay, const tab response. Import this. There we go. What else do we have? One more. We get the data. Okay, so this data, we know it is stored config type. What am I doing? Input.value. Okay, here we go. Okay, well, you see we fixed one error and then we have another one pop up. So this is different. Basically, it's recommending using the double question mark operator instead of logical because it's safer, right? So this is one of those cases where if you're new to JavaScript, you're kind of learning best practices here. And you can go in and read up on why double question mark is better than this or. Okay, are we good? Are we good? If we run lint, we're clean. Okay, so we fixed this set of errors. But I would recommend that we add additional stricter errors that are more opinionated and but perhaps even add extra quality and extra consistency to your code. And early on in the project is the time to do that because there's not that many files to fix. We just fixed a few files in 10-15 minutes. So let's go ahead and add additional checks, additional linting checks. So we're going to go into the configs, eslint.config.mjs, and instead of recommended type check, we're going to add strict type checked. Strict type checked. Okay, and let's run it, see what we get. Okay, a few more errors, not terrible. Let's go into content TypeScript. Let's see what we have here. Okay. Okay, this could be null. Okay. This is just a debug statement, right? But so let's, the easiest way to fix this, maybe like this. Okay, that's cool. All done for here. Pop-up has a bunch of issues. Okay. Meaningless void. We're calling this void because we're saying this is async. But it's not async because this is async. So it's right. It returns a promise. But this itself is not async. So it's copy and paste issue. So let's fix that. Let's fix that. Tab ID. Okay, what's this about? Okay, so this is saying that it actually recommends not using this exclamation point. And yeah, I mean, it is safer if you explicitly check instead of just saying an assertion that this is not null. I mean, the fact is this could be null. So we should just check for it, right? The ID is what? Undefined? Undefined. If tab ID undefined, continue. Replace it. So now we know it is defined, so we do not need this assertion anymore. If it's undefined, we don't do anything because we can't send a message to an undefined tab, right? Right, next error. Prefer to say for unknown. I mean, I believe this is fine to use unknown here. And I mean, this is getting into kind of very specific TypeScript keyword issues. So feel free to look this up on your own, why this is it. But the starting point would simply be to go to the rule that was firing. To go to the use unknown in catch callback variable rule. Okay, this is straightforward, also unknown here. Okay, are we good? npm run lint, and we're good. So we fixed our recommended lint errors, and then we even fixed our strict lint errors. So now we're all good. So in the next part of this series, we're going to create an options page so the user can, modify some settings in the extension.